Hi, so welcome to Writers Read for February 2022. I nearly said 2020. 2022, and I'm really, really excited to be talking to Lynn B. Mann, who has been for many years writing a book, and the book is called Being. And so we're going to talk all about being, and also Lynn's got a really interesting former life. You've done many things, Lynn, haven't you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about the things that you've done and what brought you to creating Being? And I know it's been a work in progress.
Sure, yes. Well, thank you for having me on, Lisa. It's lovely to be here chatting to you. And yes, I had in my previous lives done 22 different jobs. The only reason I know it's 22 is that one day my son, when he was about 11 or something, he had maybe over the years heard me mentioning this job or that job or whatever, and I mentioned another one, and he said, "Mum, how many jobs have you actually had?" So that led me to sit down and count them all. And so yes, various things, from aerobics instructor to researcher, then director in television, sold water filters, and various different career paths. Really kind of found more of my calling in becoming a counsellor therapist, and I really enjoyed doing that. But alongside all of that, I always wrote, and I always had the desire to write, and I always felt that I was sort of meant to be a writer, but sort of didn't really have the confidence to do it. But when I was working as a counsellor therapist, I started not really writing a book, but writing down lots of my kind of thoughts about life, and trying to kind of meet the challenges of life, and in relation to kind of counselling and therapy. So I kind of got some of the concepts and tried to kind of apply them to my own life. So I really wrote that over sort of 10 to 15 years.
Wow, that's dedication.
Yeah. But just, when I was doing other stuff, having children, doing other work and things. So, and I didn't know if I would ever sort of, try to put it out as a book. And then about 3 years ago, in fact, nearly exactly 3 years ago, a dear friend of ours who also worked with us, helped us in our business, he died very prematurely, quite suddenly. And he always said that when he retired, he was going to do all the things that he hoped he would. He was a graphic designer, but he always loved screen printing, and he said he was going back to doing more art. And it was always when he retired. And then, of course, the day never came, and I very much felt that he died with his music still in him.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, okay, I've been saying for years that, I'd love to be a writer, and I'm writing this book, but I've not done anything with it. So I kind of gave myself an ultimatum, really, and then just started sort of dedicating an hour or two in the mornings to taking the material that I had created and sort of honing it and editing it, and then I worked with professionals on it to get it to the book that it became.
Brilliant.
So,
It's really fascinating as well, that process, that you knew inside that this is what you wanted to do, and then you talk about confidence. And I think for a lot of writers, and myself included, confidence is the one thing that oftentimes keeps us away from our notebooks and our journals and our keyboards. We kind of write for ourselves, and then it takes a while for actually to step out and say, this I'm gonna share it with the world. So your friend's death, I mean, it's tragic that he died with, as you say, his music still in him, but that seemed like it was a catalyst for you, yourself, in your own journey.
Yeah, definitely. It made me become more serious, I think, about sort of creating a structure and applying myself to it more. Where before I had just been collecting notebooks and notebooks full of writings. and a few computer files. So I think it just made me get more sort of serious and structured about it.
Wow, right, okay. So Lynn, can you tell us, you've told us a little bit about sort of the premise of being. Do you want to say a little bit more and do a reading for us? Would that be okay?
Sure. Yeah, the whole kind of, as I sort of said, the whole point of being was that I felt that I was using some of the concepts of counselling and therapy in my own life. And so being is a very much about how I feel anyone can apply these in their own life. And it kind of, over time, it became apparent to me that we all live most of our lives in our heads. And I kind of felt that a lot of being was much more sort of, if you're just going to be and be present and be still, a lot of that was much more rooted in your, in your heart center, in your body. So I kind of developed this idea of saying to myself, okay, noticing when I'm more in my head and kind of pulling myself back down more towards my heart and towards more what I felt aligned with and what felt true to me. And so really that's what I sort of talk about in the book. I talk about how head stuff and how we all get caught up in head stuff and how we can bring ourselves more towards heart stuff and what that creates in our lives for us when we do live more from our heart. And I kind of refer to my own journey in it, and I have some journal extracts to illustrate some of the points of things that I wrestled with. And yeah, so I felt, I mean, for me, it was very important not to be in my head while I was writing it because of the very nature of it. So whenever I was writing it, I felt that I would kind of, before I sat down to have a session of writing and editing it, I would kind of center myself and try and be here and not in my head with it. So I felt then that I was more able to really just say what I wanted to say in the way that I wanted to say it, and how that landed with people and what they thought of it wasn't my concern. That was, that would be whatever it was. But as long as I felt satisfied that I had captured what I wanted to say in the way that I wanted to say it, then my job was done.
So it sounds like a really authentic experience from your point of view, that you felt, you just trusted that this would be something, if it landed, and to whom it landed, it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
They would take their own experience from it and hopefully have that same authentic experience. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. That's it's a real gift that you've given the world, by putting and sharing your own journey, because it's quite brave to share your own journey like that too.
Yeah, I think I did feel a bit of sort of anxiety about that, about, oh gosh, I'm going to put a lot of my private thoughts and feelings and struggles out there into the world. But it felt important to me to illustrate the points. I felt like that was the best way that I could illustrate the points, and that felt more important to me than my own kind of self-consciousness about it. And so yeah, and actually in doing that, it's made me feel more able to do that more and more.
Okay, and you've done well, because the book, I think you're in the top 100. Was that right? Did I see that?
Well, it was number 1 and number 2 in a couple of categories, small categories.
Well, it doesn't matter. That's great. Well done. Congratulations.
But yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's obviously, it's not sold loads, but I feel that what's been more important to me is the feedback I've had from the people who have read it. So I've had some really lovely reviews and comments and things from people, which has meant more to me rather than the sort of numbers or anything.
Yeah, and I think those organic sales as well, they build over time, so more and more people will begin to find your work. I remember years ago reading The Road Less Traveled. It became a really momentum, it's a huge bestseller. But I went to a talk that the writer gave, Scott Peck, And he said, initially nobody was interested in the book. Nobody will read this book. And I think the first printing of it actually didn't do very well. And then slowly over time, people started saying, have you read this book, and giving it to a friend, or have you read this book? And and then it just took off. So I think it's and I think at this time, we've all been through the COVID pandemic. It's very timely that it's available for people. There's a lot of mental health, a lot of stress.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that about The Road Less Traveled, because that was one of the first kind of books of self-development, self-help type books that I read, and I absolutely loved it. And I wrote to him, and he wrote back. I got a handwritten letter back from him, and I was very precious to me.
Yeah, he was a very generous man, like you, he was very, very generous, willing to talk about his own journey, and I think that's
a wonderful book.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, well, you never know. Maybe we'll see you as New York Times best-selling self-help book. Let's hope for that. Let's hope that if anybody's watching this, do check out Lynn's book, because it is awesome. So Lynn's going to read a little extract from it for us. Yeah.
I thought I wasn't sure which part to write, and I actually thought I might just read the start of the introduction, because I felt that it conveys the kind of impetus in me to write the book, and what is at the basis of it, and in case that sort of resonates with anyone. So this is from Being, and it's the introduction, A Soul Imperative: the quest to fulfill your unique potential as a human being. For as long as I can remember in my adult life, I felt a drive, a compulsion to understand how to fulfill my unique potential as a human being. Not in chasing symbols of success, a thriving career, marriage, children, or material possessions. More of an inner, visceral soul imperative to know and be who I truly am. This need has pulled me forward and helped me develop as a person, but also tormented me in equal measure. Sometimes it's felt like a blessing, sometimes a curse. It's been a need, a longing to change and to grow, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. I don't think I'm alone in this search. I think many of us seek self-understanding and want to function better in the world, be happier, more fulfilled, and have a sense of purpose, to know who we really are, what we are meant to be doing with our lives, and to find some meaning to it all. Over the past 20 years, I've trained and worked as a counsellor and therapist, read hundreds of books on psychology, self-development, and spirituality, watched and listened to hours and hours of videos, CDs, and podcasts, and written it all out. Like most of us, my efforts to change were often of the 2 steps forward, 3 steps back variety. Over time, though, I realized I was learning the same lessons over and over again. I saw a common thread in all the concepts, theories, and philosophies, married with my own experiences of trial and error. I came to see the thread that ran through everything, which pulled it all together, was all that was needed in itself. Everything else was helpful, but not necessary. All the time, I felt the burning desire to understand who I truly was. This drive, this hunger is who I truly am. All my reading, research, and studying, all my soul searching finally brought me back to the drive itself, to myself, to my soul, and to being. That very impulse to change, to fulfill our potential, to create, is actually being itself. It's the spiritual being that we are, existing in entanglement with the physical being that we are. Being is what being human is really about. Not the surface stuff, not who we are in the world on the outside, or all the labels and roles, or our history. Being is the life force within us.
Oh, Lynn, that's so beautifully written. I mean, not only you sharing your story, but your crafting as your skill as a writer. It's lovely. The words are lovely, and then hearing that in your own voice is very special. Thank you so much for that.
Welcome.
And where can we buy your book? Where is your book available?
It's available, probably not on the shelves in any bookstores near you, but it's certainly available to order in any bookstores. Also on Amazon, Book Depository, places like that online. It's in hardback, paperback, ebook and audiobook. So I recorded the audio for it, which was a strange experience, but when you don't like the sound of your own voice, as most of us don't. So, but anyway, it's yes, it's available in all those different formats. So.
Well, you have a great voice, I have to say. I think you have a sort of perfect audio voice, because I have listened to a couple of audio books, and I have to say, if the voice doesn't work, I can't listen to them. So I think you've got a great voice.
It's a bit jarring.
And so where can people find you if they want to reach out to you? Do you have a website?
I do. I've got a website, lynnbmann.com, and I have I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. So
brilliant.
Not very good at keeping up with posting on them and things, like a lot of us pulled in lots of different directions, but yeah, they are there, and I do sort of check on them and things. I maybe don't create enough fresh content, but I do sort of go on and check them and things. So
yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So I'm hoping that if you're watching this, that you will look out for Lynn and her book, and feel free to make contact with her directly if you have any questions following this writer's read. So thank you so much, Lynn. That's been absolutely amazing. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me to come on.